Welcome to The Creative Missionary, the podcast for songwriters, vocalists, storytellers, and artists who believe their gifts are more than just self-expression. They're tools for God's mission. Today, we're looking at a pioneering Christian music ministry in the Philippines that began in 1978 and became one of the most enduring expressions of faith through song. And it's called Papuri. The late 1970s were a time of change in the Philippines. Churches were growing, but much of the worship music was imported, which means it was translated hymns or Western gospel songs. They were meaningful, but they didn't always sound Filipino. Then Far East Broadcasting Company Philippines stepped into the scene and launched a bold vision to create original Filipino Christian music, and they called it Papuri, which means praise. The first Papuri album was released in 1978, featuring songs written and performed by Filipino believers. It was groundbreaking, finally worship music that spoke in heart language of the people. The musical phrases were crafted to accommodate the long words and distinctive expressions of the Filipino language. In other words, the way the lyrics were sung echoed the same rhythms of daily communication and prayers that is natural to their spoken language. And in songwriting, we call this prosody. Papuri carried melodies and rhythms that felt natural and deeply personal. From that first album, Papuri grew into a movement. Over the decades, it produced 27 volumes of albums featuring more than 500 original songs by Filipino composers. Some of these songs became classics, sung in churches across the nation. For example, there's one that's called Greatest Thy Faithfulness.
Dakila ka, O Diyos, tapat ka ng tunay, magmula pa sa ugat ng naming lahi. Mundo'y magunaw man, maaasahan kang lagi, maging hanggang wakas nitong buhay.
And then another one is called Because God is Love.
Pagkat ang Diyos natin, Diyos ng pag-ibig, magmahalan tayong magtulungan. At kung tayo'y bigo, ay huwag limutin na may Diyos tayo. Pagkat ang Diyos natin, Diyos ng
These are just examples of songs that became the soundtrack of Filipino worship, even bridging generations. As we can see, parents who grew up with Papuri now can hear their children singing the same songs in their churches. But what truly amplified Papuri was radio. Far East Broadcasting Company, already a leader in Christian broadcasting, used its nationwide network to air Papuri songs. This meant that even in remote villages where churches had no hymnals or instruments, believers could tune in and learn these songs. Radio made Papuri accessible to everyone. Listeners would write letters to Far East Broadcasting Company sharing how a Papuri song encouraged them during hardship, or how it led them to faith in Christ. For many, hearing worship in their own language was life-changing. It is a living proof that God ministers to people through songs. Today, Papuri is recognized as the longest-running Filipino Christian music project. It has shaped worship in the Philippines for over 4 decades. Applying the concept of Papuri to any culture and language, we can see that worship music needs to be contextualized, meaning it needs to reflect one's cultural identity. Worship music is a creative witness. It shows that the art and faith can work together to reach hearts. Also, worship songs within a culture can be passed along from generation to generation, inspiring both young and old, and bridging the gap between generations. The songs we sing shape our faith. Just as Papuri gave the Filipino church a voice, your church's music, whether borrowed, translated, or homegrown, can become a witness to God's work in your community. So here is where I'd like to ask, what songs are most often sung in your own church? Are they translations, global worship hits, or locally written pieces? And how do these songs reflect the heart of those in your community? Do they carry the struggles, joys, and hopes of your people the way Papuri did for the Philippines? The legacy of Papuri is not just about albums or radio. It's about giving believers songs that sound like their own lives. What about you? What songs are shaping your church? And what songs might God be calling you to write? I'll leave that with you to think about. That's all for now. Thanks for joining me on The Creative Missionary. If today's episode inspired you, please subscribe for more and share it with a fellow creative in your church or network who needs a reminder that their creative gifts matter and that creativity is for a purpose far greater than just self-expression. It's for God's mission. That's all for now. Keep creating, keep serving, and keep carrying the mission forward.